Hi everyone, today I'm going to teach you how you can calculate the number of moles and the number of atoms for different types of chemical species. And throughout this lesson, we're going to be using these two equations. But before we dive into these equations, I want to ask you, what is a mole? And no, I don't mean a mole like the animal. I mean a mole of some chemical substance. Well, a mole is just a group of particles. It could be a group of atoms, a group of molecules, a group of ions. It's a group of any type of particle. More specifically, it's a group of exactly 6.022 times 10 to the 23 atoms, molecules, ions, or whatever other particle that you're looking at. The way I like to look at it is that each mole has 6.022 times 10 to the 23 things in it. Whether those things be atoms, molecules, or ions depends on the question. Now the next question is, how do we find the number of moles? And the answer is using this equation. In this equation, N is the number of moles. And we can see that the number of moles is equal to the mass of the substance divided by the substance's molecular weight. And now let's jump right into a question to practice using this equation. If I were to ask you how many moles are in 25 grams of sodium chloride, how would you answer the question? Well, we know we have to use our mole equation. That means we need to know the mass, which is 25 grams, and we need to know the molecular weight of sodium chloride. We're going to have to calculate the molecular weight. All we need to do is go look at our periodic table and find the atomic mass of sodium and the atomic mass of chlorine. And then we just add those two together and we can see that the molecular weight of sodium chloride is 58.443 grams per mole. And now we have everything we need to answer this question. We just have to plug in our values for the mass and the molecular weight. And when we do the math, we see that the number of moles of sodium chloride is 0.428. So that's how you find the number of moles. And now here's a little extra practice for you. How many moles are in 100 grams of magnesium sulfate? Use what you learned and use the mole equation, and hopefully you get the same answer as me, which is 0.831. Alrighty, now let's look at the next equation. This is the equation we use if we want to find the number of atoms. And now you can also use this to find the number of molecules, the number of ions, really the number of any type of particle. From this equation, we can see that the number of atoms is equal to the number of moles times Avogadro's number. Avogadro's number is 6.022 times 10 to the 23. It represents the number of things that are grouped into a mole. And now let's jump right into a question to practice using this equation. In this question, I want to know how many atoms are in a 10-gram sample of iron. Now, in order to use our number of atoms equation, you need to know the number of moles of iron. Luckily, we know how to find the number of moles, so all you have to do is plug in your mass and your molecular weight into your mole equation. And then what you find is that the number of moles of iron is 0.18. Now we have everything we need to find the number of atoms. We just need to multiply the number of moles by Avogadro's number. And that gets us 1.1 times 10 to the 23 atoms. Now let's do another question. In this question, I'm asking you how many sodium ions are in 1 mole of sodium sulfate. Now you might think, oh my goodness, this is so easy. All I have to do is multiply 1 mole by Avogadro's number, and that gives me 6.022 times 10 to the 23. But that answer would not be correct, because that represents the number of sodium sulfates, and I had asked you to find the number of sodium ions. If we take a look at sodium sulfate, you can see that sodium sulfate is made up of 2 sodium ions. In other words, for 1 mole of sodium sulfate, we have 2 moles of sodium ions. And so in order to get the answer correct, we need to multiply the number of moles of sodium sulfate by 2. And now we can do the math and we can see that there's 1.204 times 10 to the 24 sodium ions in every mole of sodium sulfate. If you want a little extra practice, try this question. How many oxygen atoms are in 20 grams of barium nitrate? A little hint for you: look at the chemical formula and count the number of oxygen atoms. Hopefully when you do the math, you will find that there's 2.8 times 10 to the 23 oxygen atoms in 20 grams of barium nitrate. And with that, that's the end of this lesson on how you can find the number of moles and the number of atoms in different chemical substances. I hope you have a great day and good luck with the rest of your studying.